Hey folks, welcome to Unqualified, the fantasy football podcast that's been binge eating Cheez-Its and sweating in September since September. I'm your producer, Rob Diesendorf, here with Scott Johnson and Sean Brady, two fantasy football rivals that have been sabotaging each other for years, but they decided to come together to help you win your league and make your friends look like idiots. How you guys doing?
Great. I'm actually
sweating over here.
Yeah, sweating. I didn't eat any Cheez-Its today. That was only you.
You guys are sweating. I'm binge eating Cheez-Its. I'm stressed.
It's usually how it goes. I'm sweating on December 31st too, though. Like it just
something about salt. Whenever I'm really stressed, I just salt makes me feel better.
Are you okay, man?
I have a salt lick at home.
I'm worried about you.
I get stressed. I just go lick the salt lick.
You also said you were like
hanging
upset
on my wall.
before. I think we're worried about you.
Don't be worried. I have my salt lick. I'm good.
It's weird. Also, wait, really quick before we start. I like that you said my name first. That felt good.
Yeah, sometimes I gotta switch it up. I don't want you to feel bad because the reason I say Sean's name first is because it flows better off the tongue.
Sure, yeah, fine.
Yeah, damn right
but
it does.
The second reason that I say Sean's name first is because he's better than you in every way.
Wow. Oh my god.
Yes.
Oh my god.
That's nice.
Oh my god.
Oh, I gotta cut that out.
I'll just
that was
leave.
A weird laugh. Oh my god, what was I doing?
Stays.
No, we're keeping that. We're keeping that now. Everyone knows you're crazy.
I'm cutting.
You just said a crazy
sure.
thing and you laughed like that. Now everyone knows you're a crazy cat
Why did
person.
I do that?
You're not going to be able to cut it. If you do cut it, we're going to keep referencing it throughout the pod. That way you can't
Rob.
cut it out.
Remember that Cheez-It laugh you had?
Is that what you're calling it?
The Cheez-It
no,
laugh.
The crazy person
Bastard.
laugh, actually. Wait, how did that feel flow wise? Like, did it feel good saying my name first? I want to keep on
It
this.
felt good.
I need to pick me up.
It felt
this week.
good.
All right.
Like
Sweet.
I was like, he needs this.
Thanks. Sorry, Sean.
Not only does he need it, he deserves it. Because he's actually better than Sean. Plot twist.
Tell him whatever he needs to hear. He's, we all need to pick me up after week 3.
Yeah, when I beat you. I beat you this week. What are you talking about?
So what happened in football this week?
Well, since you ask, I played my co-host Scott Johnson and was down, I think, 5.5 points going into the Sunday night game with only Amari Cooper left to play. Oh, that's a locked up win in most weeks. Amari Cooper decided to how should I term it? Not get on the flight to wherever they played. This guy was terrible.
Are you placing the blame solely on Amari Cooper for your loss?
Oh, 100%.
Because you were
yes.
coming in hot earlier that day, and you were saying, "Yeah, probably going to be." So you have four leagues, and you're like, probably going to be 2-1 in 3 of the leagues, and then, I'll probably be 3-0 in my other league, meaning you would have won against me, and miraculous comeback by team. I forget the name of my team in that league, but
oh, I remember.
I was pretty stoked.
Jesus
and this
Christ,
is your emotional.
Jason Bourne.
This Jesus Christ, Jason Bourne. That's my team name. Also, I would just like to point out that this was your emotional game of the week, and you lost it.
I had 100% of my emotional investment in this game against you, and Amari Cooper is dead to me.
You feeling okay?
If I saw him on the street, I would fight him.
I'm worried about both of you.
You want to hear something funny? I didn't have a kicker for 2 weeks, and I beat Scott's team.
That league is wonky. It's a weird league. Yeah.
Yeah, you're sure.
Don't
just make excuses now.
Shut
That's
up.
Fine. Just because you have a podcast, you're trying not to look bad.
All right. Anyway,
don't want to get beat by the producer, do you?
that doesn't
that
even
one
know
stings.
what sport we're playing. What fantasy
that
sport
one
we're playing?
stings,
No.
doesn't it?
Yeah. Anyway,
stings.
Can I give my reaction?
Stings to get beaten by a producer who doesn't know.
Can we give our reaction to week 3? No. Okay. I don't even remember what I was going to say. Oh, yeah. What I was going to say. Week 3, incredible games. If you were watching Red Zone, kudos to you. There were 5 games in the 1:00 showings that went down to the wire, and we'll get into the specific performances that made those games so good. But a couple of takeaways for me. There were amazing quarterback performances pretty much across the board, with the exception of like Derek Carr on the Sunday night game. A lot of quarterback performances from guys that you wouldn't expect it from. Jacoby Brissett, Case Keenum. But overall, week 3, this is where you start to see trends continue for all teams, and a lot of offense this week.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree. It was a little bit of a crazy week, but my 2 biggest takeaways, first off, the Bills and the Bears. They might not be the most talented teams in the league, but these guys play hard. They are 2 very solid teams that will definitely keep annoying good opponents all year, especially Buffalo with head coach Sean McDermott. That team is just really, really, they show up to play every week. They're tough out. And then second, receiving running backs are just everywhere this year. We're going to talk about Chris Thompson in a little bit.
One of our pickups
phenomenal
a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, he's one of our waiver wire guys week 1, and he's just a no doubt starter in my mind now. Tariq Cohen still looks good. Ty Montgomery is a stud. Kareem Hunt, obviously. Dalvin Cook. Even like Duke Johnson looked good this week. So these types of guys are the guys that are really producing early this year, and I think this is a trend that's here to stay, at least for the rest of the year. I would buy low on guys like Theo Riddick because they might join the party soon enough.
Especially in PPR leagues, points per reception.
Yes.
You're going to get extreme value. Even in half-point PPR leagues, those running backs are way more valuable at this point, with the exception of the top couple guys like Le'Veon Bell and Melvin Gordon, but we'll get into all that. Want to quickly cover injuries. So I'm just going to go quickly through them. There weren't too many notable ones. If we don't mention an injury, it's because the guy is fine and he'll be fine for week 4. But these are the guys that we want to highlight that won't be fine for week 4 and potentially on. So Sam Bradford, again, bad knee. He was ruled out of week 3 before week 3. And Case Keenum was the quarterback of the Minnesota Vikings on Sunday. Did really well, and the wide receivers did fine. But look out for his week 4 status. Those wide receivers and pass catchers should do fine regardless, though.
Yeah, the next one breaks my heart just as a football fan. Darren Sproles tore his ACL and broke his arm on the same play. Definitely out for the year right now. It's just a really bad break for a really fun player to watch. He's not a super usable fantasy guy anyway. And we'll talk about my number 1 waiver wire guys, the guy that's going to probably step up for him, Wendell Smallwood. But for now, Darren Sproles, getting up there in age might be the last we see of him. I hope it's not, but really tough break for him this Sunday.
Another injury, Sammy Watkins had a breakout game against San Francisco Thursday night. 6 catches, 106 yards, 2 touchdowns, crushed it, but is in the concussion protocol, so watch out for his status week 4. Could be out potentially.
Yeah, another wide receiver, Kelvin Benjamin, had a really nasty looking, I don't even know, he got tackled, but his knee kind of bent behind him. Didn't look great. He's had knee issues in the past. You'll remember he tore his ACL a couple of years ago. So we're still waiting to hear his prognosis, but I would count on him being out at least a couple of weeks, at least next week. It is pretty big news for a team that just keeps losing guys.
And that was the same knee that he had the ACL surgery on and everything. It wasn't. It structurally it came back negative, the MRI, but that's his bad knee. So
yeah,
his knee bent behind him.
It was ugly,
gross.
Oh God.
Yeah. Then one more injury that we want to cover: Michael Crabtree, wide receiver on the Oakland Raiders. This team looked off to begin with, but he had a chest injury. He didn't return to the game against the Redskins. We don't know much about his prognosis, but be on the lookout. The number 1 overall wide receiver in standard leagues could be out at Denver in week 4.
Look out for Jimmy Bickle. Had an injury, but he's back.
And stop.
3 blue chip players. So again, we're going to be talking about the guys that won the week. Not necessarily the top 3 or 4 guys in each position, but notable performances. And then we're going to give you their value for the rest of the year, or what we think, how we think they're going to do. Again, we're going to go position by position: quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, and then a couple of defenses and kickers that did well. But first, want to get to the player of the week. Todd Gurley, running back, Los Angeles Rams. Got to say Los Angeles now, not St. Louis. Nice. 28 rushes, 113 yards, 2 touchdowns rushing. In the receiving game, 7 targets for 5 receptions and 36 yards and a touchdown. 32 standard points, 37 PPR on Thursday night against San Francisco. Guy crushed it. Top 3 running back for me the rest of the year. easily.
Yeah, this guy, if you had him on your team, you kind of like started this week at the 30-yard line where everyone else starts at the, on the end line. This
Nice
guy was fantastic. He's been really good all 3 weeks. I think he'll probably wind up being ranked number 2 overall behind Kareem Hunt. I agree. I think this guy's a top 3 guy moving forward, top 3 overall fantasy player moving forward. I think if people drafted again today, he'd be one of the first 3 guys taken.
Yeah, I agree. And he's going to get back to his like rookie year where he was a top 5 running back. I think this year he'll come back to that. All right, let's go position by position. Quarterback position. Tom Brady, TB12. Is that his nickname, TB12?
I think so.
Yeah, whatever. We're Jets fans. We don't really care. No. Another great week. He had a fantastic week last week in week 2. And this week, 378 yards, 5 touchdowns with 35 points against the Houston Texans. Really came back in that game. Unbelievable.
It's just unfair. That's all I'm going to say about it.
Best quarterback in NFL history? I think so. Another notable performance, Russell Wilson, a big bounce back week for him. He had 373 yards passing, 4 touchdowns through the air against Tennessee. Also, something interesting, he had 7 rushes for 26 yards. That's good for 32 points standard. So a big bounce back week for Russell Wilson on the Seattle Seahawks.
About time. This guy looked phenomenal. Finally, he used all of his different weapons. Again, looked not like he used to running the ball, but at least he's going to it. And they still lost, but I think their offense is at least starting to bounce back, which is a good sign.
Best part of that was they're trying to get Jimmy Graham the ball. I think they gave him 11 targets and he had 7 catches, and they're using Luke Wilson, the other tight end. So he's using those safety valves, which is what he needs to do. And the run game is established, so he's a QB1 rest of the year. One other guy that this is his first bounce back this year, Kirk Cousins, 365 yards, 3 touchdowns, 28 points. I know you and I both have him in separate leagues, but looking like a quarterback 1 again. Thank God.
I'm back. I'm a believer. I faltered in my belief.
Never left.
In the Church of Kirk. I'm back. This guy is so good. He slings it all over the yard. Jay Gruden had a really great game plan for Sunday night, and all of this is without him really using Terrell Pryor. I think if they do wind up integrating Pryor into the offense, eventually, I think these numbers could even grow. I think Kirk Cousins is a no doubt top 10 QB for the rest of the year.
Yeah. The only thing that concerns me about him is he's at Kansas City next week in week 4, and then he has his bye. So is this a sell high time? What do you think? Are we sticking with him?
I don't know.
He's not going to do as well at Kansas City.
I feel like if you have him, you probably have like a decent backup guy. Like, we went into the year saying, draft, Kirk Cousins and Marcus Mariota. So I think you have a good guy. You don't really necessarily need to sell high on Kirk. Or if you, like your backup, why not see what you can get for him?
Yeah.
I thought that said Kirk's Cousins.
I'm sure he has cousins. I don't know.
I thought it was him and his family.
It's one quarterback. Anyway, it's okay, Rob. Don't worry about it.
He's the quarterback, and then he has his cousins are the receivers.
Yeah, Terrell Pryor's his long lost cousin. He can't get on the ball, but yeah, they're in a funk. Anyway, honorable mention quarterbacks from week 3. We'll just go through these quickly because these are guys that came out of nowhere that we didn't think was going to happen. Blake Bortles on Jacksonville had 4 touchdowns in London, which is their home away from home. Tell you, Jacoby Brissett, or Brisket, if you will, on Indianapolis as a backup for Andrew Luck, had 2 rushing touchdowns, 1 through the air as well. And then Case Keenum, Minnesota quarterback, had 3 touchdowns through the air and really used Diggs and Thielen, which was unexpected, filling in for Bradford. So good performances there. I don't think you need to pick up any of these guys at all, but notable nonetheless.
Yeah, I was going to say, which one of these guys do you trust the most moving forward? Not necessarily for your fantasy team, but for the other guys on his team, like for T.Y. Hilton on with Brissett, for Diggs and Thielen with the Vikings. Which one of these guys is going to get their receivers the ball to the point where you don't have to worry about who's playing QB?
Yeah, I would say Keenum, honestly, because he targeted Diggs a ton. Diggs had, I think, 8 catches, 2 touchdowns, and then Thielen was a safety valve. The only problem there was Kyle Rudolph only had 1 catch in that game. I think I was just game planning. But that was really good to see because last week, Case Keenum didn't do anything. The other thing about Jacoby Brissett, he rushed it a lot. the touchdown pass he had was just a good play by T.Y. Hilton. It wasn't like he got him the ball deep. So honestly, a time to sell high on T.Y. Hilton might be now. But I think Case Keenum gives those guys the most value. Blake Bortles threw 3 of his touchdowns to Mercedes Lewis, who is like 35 or something. I don't know. All right, let's move on to running back position. Kareem Hunt again. Huh?
Can use Bortle water.
Nice one. Parched with a bottle of water. All right, we're on running backs, Rob. Kareem Hunt. Could probably use that name.
My favorite, KareemHunt.com.
Crushed it with a 69-yard touchdown run, 17 for 172, 1 touchdown. This guy's the top 3 running back moving forward. He's on this list. He's been on this list every week.
Yeah, I don't even want to say anything about him because I don't want to jinx it. That's how good he is.
All right, let's move on then. Chris Thompson, 8 rushes, 38 yards rushing. The best part was he was receiving the ball a ton. 6 catches, 150 yards. Let that sink in. That was more than most wide receivers on Sunday and Monday and Thursday. 6 for 150 and 1 touchdown. He has Kirk Cousins' trust. As long as Chris Thompson is catching the ball, that's going to help everyone else on that team. Chris Thompson is a no-brainer starter in PPR and maybe even standard at this point.
Yeah, I
He's
think
catching the ball so much.
I think if you have him in a standard league, you probably don't have a better flex option than Chris Thompson. This guy is the number 1 playmaker on the Washington offense. What else you got to say about that?
Easy. Yeah. Another guy that bounced back, Jordan Howard, 23 rushes, 138 yards, 2 touchdowns. Caught it a little bit. He had a game-winning touchdown run against the Swiss cheese run defense of the Steelers. Jordan Howard back to running back 1 status?
Yeah, I think he's on the lower end of running back 1s, but I think this is kind of like what we said about Tariq Cohen in week 1. He did all this with Tariq Cohen still playing well. They can both they can coexist together. So I think if I own either one of the Bears players, I think you kind of, price them accordingly. I think Jordan Howard is still a starter. I think Tariq Cohen is a nice flex option. I think you don't have to worry about them harming each other too much. Obviously, it's not ideal, but I don't think one of them is really going to stop the other one from being effective.
Yeah, and Howard has a tough schedule coming up. So I think he has Green Bay and then a couple other Minnesota, a couple tough rush defenses. So you could make a case for selling him high. I think he's a low-end running back 1, high-end running back 2, but they can coexist, and they both have awesome. The team has awesome plays for both of them. One last guy, blue chip again, Dalvin Cook. 5 catches, 72 yards, 27 rushes. He's getting the ball a ton and should be a top 10 to 15 running back for the rest of the year, both standard and PPR.
Yeah, I mean, I clearly love this guy coming into the season, and he's exactly what I thought he would be. I'm pissed I don't own this guy on any of my teams. It just didn't work out for me. But,
I got him in a couple.
Oh man, I'm missing out because this guy looks like the real deal. I would say top 10. I think top 15 is selling him a little short. I think top 10 the rest of the way.
I agree. Running back 1. All right, wide receiver, blue chip players for week 3. Brandon Cooks, huge bounce back week. Only 2 catches last week, so this week he had 5. Not that many more. 7 targets it's good, but it's not great. But 131 yards and 2 touchdowns. A 2-point conversion. He caught the game winner at the end of the game, or the touchdown that put them up. Looks like he got some chemistry with Tom Brady now.
Yeah, I think it's important to note that most of those numbers came after Brady and Chris Hogan connected on a couple of long touchdowns.
Right.
So it's kind of tough to see which one of them is the number 1 dog in this offense. And Gronkowski also had a good game. So I think,
and you got Gronk. Yep.
There's a lot of mouths to feed. I think that's why the 7 targets is a little bit low, but this guy is so effective. He's so tough to cover for an entire game. So I think we'll see more games where he wins you weeks like this than we did, games where he didn't look great like the first 2 weeks of the year. I think he's back to being, a borderline, kind of a tweener, wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2.
Yeah, I'd agree. He's not really gonna have consistency week over week. He's gonna have a week like this, kind of like Emmanuel Sanders does. He's gonna have a week like this, or he's gonna have a 4-point week. So, especially on the Patriots, they didn't really run it a lot either. They're not gonna throw it as much as they have been. I don't think that's just game flow. So, be careful with Brandon Cooks, but he had a good week in the week 3. Stephon Diggs, We just talked about him a little bit. 11 targets from
boy.
Case Keenum. 8 catches. Oh my God, I thought it was less than this. 173 yards receiving, 2 touchdowns. He's a wide receiver 1 now.
Yeah.
He crushed it again.
He really did. To me, he's
I
like
have him on my freaking bench.
we had, Todd Gurley as the player of the week. You could definitely make a case for Stephon Diggs being, the player of the week instead. He had 29 standard points, 37 PPR because of all those catches. Guy's outrageously good.
All right, Sammy Watkins, another wide receiver, blue chip player for week 3. We covered him a little bit before, so I don't want to cover him too much. 6 catches, 106 yards, 2 touchdowns. He was targeted heavily, which is really good to see. It's kind of a cushy defense, so I think you could sell him high and feel good about it, but he's in the concussion protocol, so be careful of him week 4 and on. Another blue chip player, T.Y. Hilton, 9 targets, 7 catches, 153 yards, 1 touchdown. The touchdown that he had, I want to talk about that a little bit because I think it has a lot to do with his value. He caught it and then kind of maneuvered through the defense and just out-sprinted everyone. It wasn't really a deep pass to him like Andrew Luck does to him. So what are you looking at his value for, I guess, until Andrew Luck comes back, potentially week 6, and then moving forward?
I think he's, kind of like a rich man's Martavis Bryant. He's like a very boomer bust wide receiver 2. I think if you own him, you kind of can't afford to bench him. But
yeah,
he's not going to have, reliability week to week until Luck is back. I wouldn't sell high on him solely because, when Luck is back, Luck's coming back anyway. So I think he's almost, it's not really a buy low anymore, but I would definitely buy if someone's trying to jump ship on him.
Yeah. Okay. That's good. I like that. Tight end position, blue chip players week 3. This is a guy we haven't mentioned like ever, and I haven't heard his name in like 5 years. Mercedes Lewis on Jacksonville. He had 5 targets, 4 catches, 3 touchdowns in London.
I'm just shrugging. I mean, I wouldn't expect this. I probably wouldn't even pick this guy up. It's just
I don't know. No,
one of those things, man. Fantasy football is crazy.
Whatever. It's their home away from home in foggy
If
London.
you started him, kudos to you.
Yeah,
if you started Mercedes Lewis this week,
I would love to see the stats on that.
24 standard points.
It's got to be like 0.001% of leagues, but whatever. Kudos to you. Random dude that started him. And then Rob Gronkowski, 10 targets, 8 catches, 89 yards, 1 touchdown. He's looking healthy, so ride it while it's hot. Still healthy.
I agree. I mean, look, tight end is such a weak position, especially this week. We've had guys go down already. If you got Gronk, you pay the price. You pay the injury risk. You're going to enjoy the spoils for now.
Yep. A couple quick defenses that did well in this week, which it doesn't make any sense why they did well. So we can try to make sense of it right now if you guys want. But the Redskins played Oakland. They got 16 points somehow. Oakland just looked off, and I think that Redskins defense was really pumped up. So I wouldn't buy into them too much, but they might be like a good streaming option. They've done pretty well all year. Saints defense at Carolina crushed it, but do not pick them up because they're terrible usually, and Cam Newton had a terrible game. The Jets defense at home versus Miami. Miami just looked off there too, so wouldn't buy the Jets defense. And then the Jaguars defense in London against Baltimore crushed it too, but I wouldn't look too... I mean, the Jaguars defense is pretty good, but Baltimore looked terrible too. So these were just off weeks for the offenses that they were playing.
Yeah, I think the Jags are really good. I think it says a little bit more about the Ravens than we think. I don't think they're a great offense, obviously, but the Jaguars can really push around bad offenses and sometimes even decent ones. So they're definitely a team that, is going to wind up on the waiver wire. I don't think anyone's hanging on to them week to week. But if, you see a decent to good matchup for them, I wouldn't hesitate to pick them up. They have really good corners, really good defensive line. You could do a lot worse.
And nobody cares about kickers unless you go 2 weeks without one. I learned that the hard way. Gotta make
sure your kicker's on the field.
Yeah,
that's all you need.
One.
Exactly.
At least
make sure he's not a backup. Yeah.
All right, so those are some of the guys that helped you win your week in week 3. Now it's time to look at the other side of things. These guys, the duds. the guys that really screwed you over this week. And let's start with the quarterback position. 4 guys in particular: Derek Carr, Cam Newton, Trevor Siemian, Phillip Rivers. Scott, which of these guys are you most worried about?
Most worried about Cam Newton. He had 3 interceptions.
Same.
He lost one of his safety valves, Greg Olsen, a couple weeks ago, and Kelvin Benjamin this past week. And I don't know how he's looking prognosis wise. 7 fantasy points. He just couldn't do anything against New Orleans, which is should have been a cake matchup. So I'm most worried about Cam. I think you start anyone over him.
I can see the
Carson
fury
Wentz.
in Sean's eyes right now.
Yeah, he looks so pissed right now. Oh my god. Simeon, I wouldn't worry about. Rivers not starting. Derek Carr should be a low end quarterback 1 the rest of the way, so I'm not worried about him. That Washington defense looked really good against Carr.
I drafted Cam Newton in my my league that I've been in for 10 years.
The OG league.
So this is the OG league. There's a lot of hostility, a lot of great rivalries amongst our friends. I drafted Cam Newton thinking he'd be a steal. Thank God I went up drafting Carson Wentz as my backup because I'm done with Cam Newton. I'm trading him for anyone out there.
Would you trade him for
give me a
CJ
trade
Anderson?
offer. For CJ Anderson, I would take CJ Anderson for Cam Newton. Yes, I'm not a fan of CJ Anderson after this week either.
Oh.
I spent the whole day kind of just ragging on CJ Anderson, but. Yeah, Cam Newton not looking good. I think definitely downgraded him to QB2 status. I think the rest of those other 3 guys, they're about where we thought they'd be despite this week. Derek Carr still low in QB1. Trevor Siemian, he's a QB2 at best. Like we said, came crashing back down to earth.
Yep.
All you guys that bought into the hype, you got what you deserve. Phillip Rivers, I'm a little bit more worried about, but
you're so angry right now.
Oh, dude, Cam Newton just gets my blood.
Is that Trevor Siemian or is it Siamian?
Siamese.
He is basically, if you look at him, he's just McLovin playing football. And he plays about exactly what you think he would play like.
I like that.
Is he Hawaiian?
That's good. I don't know.
McLovin was Hawaiian.
I don't think
That's
so.
why I ask.
Fake ID.
He's like an Irish R&B singer,
Between that and Muhammad.
All right, so those are the quarterbacks that let us down in week 3. Running backs, we had a bunch of disappointing performances. Jay Ajayi, CJ Anderson, Marshawn Lynch, and Javorius Buck Allen. Kind of similar to the QB situation. We talk about 3 guys that you kind of count on as a starter, and then one guy that people are high on, the trendy guy. In this case, that would be Buck Allen. Scott, who are you most worried about from this running back group?
Most worried about? Honestly, I have a bias against him. I think you know where I'm going with this. I would say Marshawn Lynch because he only had 6 carries for 18 yards. You're saying not to panic, but I'm panicking because he's not on the field when that team is down, and we just saw a bunch of holes in that team against Washington, who we didn't think was going to happen. We thought that was going to be a shootout, and it just wasn't. I am worried about Marshawn Lynch because he's 31 years old. Yeah, he's beast mode, but you can't take that many hits and expect to do that up until you're 35.
Flips for no reason.
He's 32. He's doing flips for no reason. He's not eating Skittles on the sideline. He's dancing like an ass. I don't know. I'm worried about Marshawn Lynch. Also, CJ Anderson came crashing back down to earth. He was the 4th best overall running back after 2 weeks, and now you have Jamal Charles to worry about. So that looks like more like a timeshare. I'm worried about both CJ Anderson and Marshawn Lynch. Jay Ajayi should be fine. Buck Allen, I don't know. That's going to be a timeshare too, but Buck Allen should be the best out of that bunch.
Yeah, I think what we really saw for CJ Anderson and Marshawn Lynch is 2 guys that are, it's kind of like the inverse of what you would think. 2 guys that are very reliant on their team's passing games to get theirs. So when the Raiders aren't throwing the ball, moving the ball down the field, and they need to, play catch up, and their offense is not performing as it's supposed to, Lynch, as we saw, is probably not going to be on the field as much as he should be. He still led the team in carries, even though he only had 6. It was a weird game for the Raiders. I don't know. I'm not panicking. I'm probably still starting him. I own him in one league, but he's
you
definitely
probably have to.
Yeah, you have to. He's the running back 2 that we thought he was. He's some people might have got carried away and plugged him in as their running back 1. He's still a starter for me. CJ Anderson, oh God,
I don't know. This is a difficult one because the matchup on paper, it was Buffalo, right?
Yeah.
Jamal Charles did better than him. And we didn't. I mean, Jamal Charles has been getting 8 to 9 carries every week, but he hasn't been doing anything with them. So I don't think they're going to increase his carries. But C.J. Anderson got less after running all over everyone the first 2 weeks. So I'm panicking a little bit on Anderson, and they didn't really establish that run game, and that's why Trevor Siemian had a bad game. The passing game was bad. This team is going to live and die by the run game. I don't know about that. I don't know about Anderson. I think he's a matchup play at best.
Yeah, I think a big chunk of this is that what I said earlier in the podcast about the Bills being a really tough, bring it every week style of team. I think that played into this a little bit. With that being said, let's move into the wide receivers. Two guys that we already talked about the Raiders having a bad game. These, top 2 receivers did nothing for you. Amari Cooper, Michael Crabtree, and then on top of that, Baltimore Ravens receiver Jeremy Maclin, Terrell Pryor on the Washington Redskins, and Martavis Bryant on the Steelers. All these guys didn't look great this week. Which of these guys are you the most worried about?
Can I say 2 of these guys?
Yeah, sure.
I'm most worried about because I'm worried about Amari Cooper. 5 targets and a couple of drops. He looks like a rookie again, like his rookie year. He really improved on his drops in year 2 last year, but he's already dropped I think 6 balls this year in 3 weeks, which is crazy. So he's a wide receiver 2 right now. With some upside, obviously. He's a freak athlete. And then I'm also worried about Terrell Pryor. Only 4 targets. He looks raw in this offense. 2 catches, 19 yards. He's a low-end flex play right now. And I got tricked, honestly. I drafted him. And he doesn't have any chemistry with Kirk right now. So I would downgrade him to a wide receiver 3 or 4 right now.
Yeah, you sold me on Pryor heading into the year. I don't own him on any of my teams, but I was pretty excited about to watch this guy on Sundays. Let me add one thing about Cooper. We talked about Crabtree being a little bit banged up with that chest injury. I think So if Crabtree does miss any time, Cooper, even though we're kind of downgrading to wide receiver 2 status for now, if Crabtree's out, he's back as a wide receiver 1 because he'll just be the
target
focal point of that passing game.
Terrell Pryor's Richard Pryor's son, right?
Yes,
cool.
Exactly. I was wondering when you were going to bring that up.
It's good to see him out there.
Continuing the legacy.
For Maclin and Martavis Bryant, these guys are, more flex plays than anything else. So I think, it's you're kind of playing with fire with the Baltimore passing game. And Martavis Bryant is clearly the third option in that offense. So that's, going to be great some weeks and not great other weeks. So I wouldn't, alter their status at all heading
Still
into
a little
next
rusty
week.
too.
Exactly. All right. So now tight end, we mentioned before, being an extremely weak position this week especially. And, these 4 guys in particular, Austin Hooper, Jack Doyle, Kyle Rudolph, and Kobe Fleener all let you down if you had him in your lineup.
And we didn't mention Travis Kelce. 1 catch for 1 yard.
Oh, yeah, another one.
Hooper's in the wrong sport.
Even worse.
I mean, that's why he's not doing well.
I don't know. Honestly, Rudolph and Doyle should be fine. So Kyle Rudolph played with a backup quarterback, Case Keenum. Should be fine for the rest of the year once Bradford comes back, the checkdown king. Jack Doyle, once Andrew Luck comes back, week 6 potentially, Doyle should be fine. These guys are still getting targeted. It's just a matter of opportunity and kind of game flow and quarterback play. Kobe Fleener, once Willie Snead comes back from suspension, I would bump down Kobe Fleener to a tight end 2. And then Austin Hooper, 2 targets for the 3rd week in a row, tight end 2. Travis Kelce should be fine. He should bounce back. That was just game flow as well. They didn't throw it too much. Kansas City game.
Yeah, I'm let down by Austin Hooper. I was so excited after week 1. I think
we did mention he only got 2 targets, though.
Yeah, I know. And it just, in that offense, especially when that offense is humming and he's not a part of things, really disheartening. Yeah. I think the one thing to keep in mind, if you have him as like your backup tight end, they do have a couple of nice matchups coming up, and they're at home for a couple of them. So I think he'll be a little bit better at home just based on the type of game that he plays. So I wouldn't cut bait with him yet, but again, it's tough to plug him into your lineup when he's only getting the 2 targets a game.
I agree.
All right, and finally, let's get to a couple of defenses that let us down. The Bucks, the Rams, the Seahawks, and my personal favorite or least favorite this week, the Baltimore Ravens.
Do you hate them as much as Cam Newton?
They're pretty close, yeah.
Would you rather have Ravens defense or Cam Newton the rest of the year?
Ravens
The
defense.
Baltimore Ravens. Corey
But that being said, I will not have the Baltimore Ravens the rest of the year. That's only if I had to.
Wait.
Jeez.
Would you rather have one player of the Ravens defense playing quarterback for your team or Cam Newton? Like you have to choose one of the players on the Ravens defense, like Terrell Suggs or Jimmy Smith. I don't even know who else they have.
They still have Eric Weddle.
I think so. Yeah.
He might be right. No, I'll stick with Cam then. That's asking too much.
Sorry,
but the Ravens.
Wait.
Let's get real here. The Ravens go to London to play the Jaguars. You know, I'm like licking my chops, picking them up as my streaming defense of the week, and they just were terrible, absolutely terrible. They got absolutely shelled by the Jacksonville Jaguars in London.
I think the Jaguars have home field advantage when they're in London. They play like 2 games every year. I think they're gonna play another game. Like they play better there than when they're in Jacksonville. I think they have more football fans, American football fans in London for the Jacksonville Jaguars than there are in Jacksonville.
Can you imagine growing up with the name Suggs?
That's his last name, dude.
I know.
Terrell
yeah,
Suggs.
Terrell sucks.
I actually had a team name one year based on Terrell Suggs. I will not say what the team name was, but I had that in my name.
Terrell sucks.
We're going to leave that up to your imagination.
Yeah, just leave it up to your
Am
imagination.
I missing something?
Not sucks. No. I don't know.
What else could it be?
No, yeah, you're right.
Can
I
you
just
say it?
realized it was based on that. Whatever.
Why?
No,
Say
I'm not
it.
saying it. All right, that was the week 3 recap, the studs and duds, if you will. Now we're going to get into the waiver wire. These are guys, we're just going to highlight a couple of guys that we think you should pick up for week 4 and on. So these waiver claims go in Tuesday night or Wednesday morning really early. They're processed the morning of Wednesday morning. So get them in ASAP as soon as you listen to this. We're just going to mention 2 guys each that we like. One guy that we can agree on before we get started is Chris Thompson. We told you to pick him up in week 1 if he wasn't already owned. Pick him up. He should be owned in 100% of leagues. Washington running back. My number 1 ad for this week is Devin Funchess, wide receiver on the Carolina Panthers. Again, Kelvin Benjamin went down with a knee injury. They don't have Greg Olsen. They're in desperate need of pass catchers, and although the passing game doesn't look that good, Devin Funchess is the next guy up. And then my number 2 ad is Dante Foreman, running back on the Houston Texans. They're getting this guy the ball a good amount. He's almost getting as many carries and catches as Lamar Miller, but I think at this stage he might be more talented than Lamar Miller. Lamar Miller is one of my top sell-high targets. It's a timeshare now, and Dante Foreman, the rookie, could have a big value moving forward.
Yeah, like both those guys. My number 1 ad this week is Wendell Smallwood. I mentioned him a little bit earlier. Philadelphia Eagles running back. He's only owned in 2% of leagues, and he had a really nice game last week. This week. He had 12 carries for 71 yards, and he had a catch for 9 yards. Sproles is out. We just talked about him, to start the podcast. And Wendell Smallwood's going to get more touches than ever as the kind of receiving back complement to LeGarrette Blount. I think Smallwood's a more dynamic overall player than Blount as well. So this guy could be a nice flex option if he continues to get looks. My number 2 target, staying in the NFC East, is Sterling Shepard, New York Giants wide receiver. He's only owned in 31% of leagues, which is kind of surprising to me. He's a pretty popular player. He had 7 catches for 133 yards and a touchdown this week. He had a huge touchdown that, kept the Giants in the game. Look, the guy is clearly the number 2 option behind Odell. He's a much better football player at this stage in his career than Brandon Marshall is. And, really dynamic talent. If he can get going, the Giants might be all right offensively. It's not looking too bright for them, but if Shepard keeps playing this well, he's going to be, really nice possible flex option as well.
All right, so in order to add guys, you got to drop guys. So we're talking about a couple of guys that are cuttable in redraft leagues. Redraft meaning they're not keeper leagues. You're going to draft a new league every year, new team. Couple of guys that we think that you can drop. I have 2 here that are definitely droppable. Zay Jones, wide receiver on the Buffalo Bills. He had 0 catches, 0 yards. Doesn't even matter how many targets. They're just not targeting him a ton. I think he had a couple of targets. There was some offseason or preseason hype for him. I think you could drop him, make some room for one of those wide receivers that we mentioned, like Devin Funchess. My second drop, I'm going to repeat it for a second week in a row. Eddie Lacy, Seattle running back. And I'm also going to add in Thomas Rawls. Both these guys, Thomas Rawls has been on the field for 17 snaps this season for the Seattle Seahawks. Eddie Lacy's been out there for 7. Chris Carson has been out there for 70-something or even more. It's just a ton more. I think it's 100, more than 100. Eddie Lacy, droppable. Thomas Rawls, droppable.
Yeah, I two guys I'm going to mention that wouldn't be the first guy I would drop off my bench if I have a guy like Jeremy Hill or Dante Moncrief. Those would be the guys I'd cut first. But two guys I'm going to mention because you might not be thinking about dropping them. First guy, Tyrell Williams, Los Angeles Chargers receiver. Keenan Allen is back officially. He's their number one target. Tyrell Williams is not getting looks consistently enough to be a usable fantasy player. So I think you could feel okay dropping him if you have someone that you really want on the waiver wire. And second, Terrence West, Baltimore Ravens running back. First off, the Ravens look terrible as a team this Sunday, so maybe you don't want to overreact. But the one guy that did look kind of good for them is Alex Collins, the ex-Seattle Seahawks running back. Yeah. He looked really good this week. He could be a possible waiver wire pickup. I think Terrence West, between Buck Allen and Alex Collins, I think Terrence West is going to kind of get lost in the shuffle.
Yeah, it's just it's a running back by committee there too. It's three guys now, exactly. So just wait and see. Yeah, it's kind of like the Seattle Seahawks running back situation. One quick thing about Tyrell that's weird to me. They're not throwing it to him deep. He only had 2 catches this week, and he's getting like under routes, like in the middle of the field, and like little slant routes, which is weird to me because they threw it deep to him last year. I think that offensive line is pretty bad. They're pressuring Phillip Rivers a lot, so they're not getting it deep to him. Now we're going to talk about buy low and sell high. So a couple targets that we want you to buy low. So basically they pretty much haven't performed up to what we thought they would, and you could buy these guys at a low price, and then also sell high. So these guys have outperformed all expectations, but buy low first. My first guy is Adam Thielen. So again, showed some chemistry with Case Keenum. 2 weeks in a row, 5 catches for 2 weeks in a row. Week 1 with Sam Bradford had 9 catches, 157 yards. He hasn't scored a touchdown yet, so you have to think that's going to increase. That's my first buy low guy. And then second is Derek Carr after a bad game. Someone might freak out about him, but I still have him as a low-end quarterback 1, and that puts him into starting territory. But if anyone's freaking out about him, I would jump on that and buy him low.
Yeah, I can get behind both those guys as well. One guy I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, Theo Riddick. He's just that prototypical receiving back in a good offense. I think more often than not, he's going to provide you some good value, especially if you're a PPR player. So Theo Riddick, definitely target him. And my second guy, I'm kind of a homer for this guy in the first place, but DeAndre Hopkins. Deshaun Watson looked absolutely fantastic for the Houston Texans against the New England Patriots this weekend. And I think that's just going to benefit DeAndre Hopkins more and more moving forward. I think this guy is a kind of a tweener, a wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2, but he's someone that you're going to want on your team once Watson starts to get more and more comfortable in this Houston Texans offense.
Yeah, and I get behind those guys too. He's at 7 catches each week. So the only thing I would
Theo ridiculous. I don't like that word tweener, by the way. Makes me feel uncomfortable.
What other word do you want? Yeah.
Tweener.
There's no other
hybrid
word for it. Hybrid. Ooh.
Nah.
How about a teener? No, that sounds even weirder.
That's even weirder.
Sorry. That's
that's
weird.
Oh,
anyway,
God.
Can we get that to sell high? Sell high targets. My first is Lamar Miller. I think I said him last week as well. They're just giving the ball to Dante Foreman a lot, and he just doesn't do anything with the ball this year. He's had double-digit carries, I think, every week, but he's not doing anything. Doesn't have a ton of touchdowns. He's my first sell high target. And then the other one is DeMarco Murray, who ripped off a huge touchdown run, but again, injury prone. He was injured coming into week 3. He has Derrick Henry nipping at the heels there, so sell high target there for DeMarco Murray too.
Yeah, my guy that I'm going to talk about a little bit is Chris Hogan, but before we get to that, I know you own Lamar Miller on at least one team.
Ugh.
Just for the listeners out there, what kind of player are you looking to buy when you're selling Lamar Miller? Like, who are you trying to trade him for?
Yeah, that's a good question. Honestly, I would look at like a player like Joe Mixon, who has kind of underperformed. He was one of our buy low targets, I think, last week. But Joe Mixon, Cincinnati running back, they gave him 18 carries Sunday. He's a rookie. Talent wins out there, and they have a new offensive coordinator, so I think they're going to strive to get him the ball a lot. The volume will be there, and the talent will take over eventually, and the production will be there. But I think with Lamar Miller, it's just capped. Like, he had, I want to say 14 carries, so they're getting the ball at an okay amount, but they have Dante Foreman, who I really believe in, and Lamar Miller, he he just doesn't look like great out there. So I would try to buy like a Joe Mixon or even like a Chris Carson, Seattle running back type. If you can pair him with like a pretty good wide receiver that you can buy low on, I would sell Lamar Miller for that. I know you put a lot into him, but I would have no problem selling him for a couple of guys like Joe Mixon or Chris Carson paired with a wide receiver.
Cool. Yeah, that sounds good to me too. My guy, real quick, Chris Hogan. I mentioned earlier that we don't know who's going to be the top receiver in this Patriots offense week to week. I'm willing to bet that more often than not, it's going to be either Brandon Cooks or Rob Gronkowski. I think for that reason alone, I think Chris Hogan, especially coming off a really good game this week, definitely see what you can get for him. I'm not necessarily pulling the trigger for any deal that comes up, but he's someone that I'm definitely shopping because you're not going to have the reliability week to week with this guy.
Who are you looking to get out of like Chris Hogan?
It depends, what your league mates view him as. I think. Oh man, I'm trying to. Honestly, one thing I would try to do is maybe deal him for Sammy Watkins. If a Sammy Watkins owner is freaking out because of the concussion, I think Sammy Watkins' rest of the season will have some value when he comes back healthy as the number one offense in that Rams offense, number one target rather. So I think if you can pull something like that off, I think that would be a really good trade for you.
Yeah. How about like a Jarvis Landry type who doesn't really do much with his targets, but he's had like 19 catches the past 2 games. I don't know if you can get like a Jarvis Landry out of a Chris, if you could sell Chris Hogan high for a Jarvis Landry. But, I mean, Jarvis Landry hasn't really done much with the catches he's gotten, so that could be a candidate to buy low
Yeah,
on.
that would work too. I'm 100% behind that.
All right, that does it for Week 3 recap and waiver wire, guys. Now we're going to be talking about Week 4 preview in the form of Would You Rather?
Woo woo!
Yeah, we got some good feedback on this, and we want more feedback. If you guys like this section, we're going to keep it going. I know we have fun with it, but basically the process here is we're going to have each position, quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end. And Sean and I are going to say who we would rather have in Week 4. We're going to give you 2 different groupings. So the first grouping is going to be both good matchups. So these 2 guys that we're going to mention both have good matchups. We think they're both going to do well, but we're going to choose between one or the other. And then we're going to do 2 guys that have bad matchups. So for quarterbacks, Week 4, these are both guys that are going to have good matchups. Russell Wilson versus Indianapolis or Drew Brees at Miami, which is in London, 9:30 a.m. on Sunday. Who would you rather have Week 4?
Just based on last week, I think I'm going to go with Russell Wilson. I think the Seahawks offense is back, and I'm a little bit worried about the Saints traveling overseas, and they haven't looked quite right yet. Obviously, they haven't been bad by any stretch, but I think the Seahawks are back, and they're here to stay.
Yeah, Drew Brees hasn't thrown a pick yet this year, and they're technically at Miami, but it's in London. Miami just got stomped on by Josh McCown, but I'm still taking Russell Wilson versus Indianapolis. He just threw 4 touchdowns and looked great in a resurgent Week 3. All right, these are 2 guys that have bad matchups, but we're going to choose between the 2 of them. And you're probably starting both of them this week, but would you rather have Kirk Cousins at Kansas City or Derek Carr at Denver Week 4?
I'm going to stick with Kirk. I think the Raiders really scared me on Sunday night, and Denver is clearly a better defense than Kansas City. So give me Kirk Cousins this week.
Yeah, I agree. I think Kansas City is a tough place to play. It's always one of the loudest stadiums in terms of decibels. I remember that stat somewhere. But Kirk looked like a great bounce back week, and I think he has momentum going into Week 4. Derek Carr does not, and at Denver is a tough matchup.
All right, and now for the both of you. Would you rather fight an NFL kicker or have to hold a crying baby on an airplane?
Scott, I'm going to let you go first. I know you have a bone to pick.
All right, I have some questions and parameters here. The fight with an NFL kicker, is this like an octagon fight, or is this a boxing match? What are we doing? Or is this a street fight?
It's a no-rules fight. Anywhere. Could happen anywhere. Could be on a mountain. Could be in a dumpster. Could be in a public bathroom.
Can we pick the kicker?
Sure.
I'm not a fighter, but holding a crying baby on an airplane. Also, how long is the flight?
At least 6 hours.
Till completion.
At least.
Oh,
it could be
God,
anywhere
that's
from
awful.
6 to 24 hours.
Crying baby on an airplane sounds awful, and I'm not a fighter, but I would rather. I have a couple kickers that are on my shit list.
I'm fighting Doug Bryan. He's retired, retired Jets kicker. This guy missed not one, but 2 field goals to lose the game, a playoff game against the Pittsburgh Steelers a bunch of years back. My dad's a Steelers fan. We were watching the game together. I threw cushions at our television, almost broke it. I cannot stand this guy. I would gladly fight him. I would pick fighting him over something good. So if I'm picking between that and holding a crying baby on an airplane, I'm picking the fight. Doug Bryan, consider yourself warned.
Yeah, Steven Hauschka on the Buffalo Bills. Fuck you. All right. Rob, we'll turn it over to you, Rob. What would you rather do?
I'm pretty indifferent. I'm definitely not holding a crying baby on an airplane, though.
All right, so we're all going to fight a kicker.
Yeah, I'm going to fight a kicker.
Maybe you could fight your backup kicker that you had on your team for 2 weeks in a row.
He's already injured, so I'd fight him.
Yeah, good. It's good play there. All right, running back for week 4, would you rather? So these are both good matchups and guys that are on the rise here. So not like stud guys, but maybe these are your flex guys. We have Chris Carson versus Indianapolis or Joe Mixon at Cleveland. What do you got? Who would you rather have week 4?
I'm going to go with Chris Carson. I think, as I mentioned before, I think the Seahawks are here to stay. I'm still a little bit worried about the Bengals offense. They looked a little bit better than they in week 3 than they did in week 1 and 2. Still, though, I think Chris Carson could have a really nice day against Indianapolis.
Yeah, I'm taking Mixon just because talent wins out, and Carson had 10 carries for 34 yards, something like that, and he had a receiving touchdown. He's not going to get a receiving touchdown every time with CJ Prosise there, and they threw it a ton because it was just slow at the gate for them. I think that might continue against Indianapolis, as bad as they are. But Mixon, 18 carries. He's going to be at Cleveland, division game that they need a win in. I'm taking Mixon. All right, these are both bad matchups. Christian McCaffrey at New England or Amir Abdullah at Minnesota. Who would you rather have week 4?
Ooh, this is tough. I'm going to go with Christian McCaffrey just based on the fact that he's more of an important part of his offense than Amir Abdullah is. I don't think it's a good matchup by any stretch of the imagination. I think the Patriots should handle Carolina pretty handily. I don't know if that even makes sense. Handle them handily.
Handedly.
Yeah, they're handling them handily.
Handily.
If I had to start one of these two guys, I would pick McCaffrey just because he has much more upside, I think, than Abdullah.
Yeah, I'm going McCaffrey too. Obviously, you drafted him as one of your starters. The only thing that gives me pause is 4 carries. He only had 4 carries for 16 yards week 3. And they lost to New Orleans, and that was game flow, a lot of it. But they're giving the ball to Jonathan Stewart a whole lot. But the encouraging thing was he had 11 targets in the passing game with 9 catches for over 100 yards. And that's going to continue without Greg Olsen there. Kelvin Benjamin potentially out for a week or 2 or more. So I'll take McCaffrey at New England as well.
All right, I got a real good one for you guys.
Ready.
Would you rather spend 3 hours with Rex Ryan or have the song Thunderstruck come on every time you enter a room?
Sean, you want to take this one first?
Without explanation, I'm going to pick having the song Thunderstruck come on every time I enter a room.
No explanation? All right, fine.
No explanation. I just don't want to hang out with Rex Ryan.
Again, I have a couple of questions. Or one question, I guess. Thunderstruck, does everyone around you hear it?
Absolutely.
And also,
it's out loud.
Okay, and how long does it play for when you walk into a new room?
And as long as an intro would be for you. So you enter,
seconds?
maybe it plays and fades out as you sit down at your desk or wherever.
Yeah, that's really
That's
annoying.
bad.
But maybe it doesn't. Maybe it just keeps going. You walk into Starbucks and the whole time you're trying to order, they can barely hear you.
I mean, it's a great song, but every single room, no. 3 hours with Rex Ryan, that's I'll take it. It's fine.
I'm going to take Thunderstruck because I think it's going to make life a lot more interesting.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I agree.
You don't think Rex can make your life more interesting?
I don't even know the guy.
Sexy Rexy?
I don't know anything about him. I think, what is he, like feet?
Wow.
Oh my God, he does. I forgot about that.
Rob's on top of this, too.
We talk about his feet for 3 hours.
Yeah, I do my research. Yeah, I read.
All right. Wide receiver position. Let's move on to week 4 wide receivers. These are both good matchups, so you're probably playing both of them. Brandon Cooks versus Carolina or Sammy Watkins at Dallas? Who do you got week 4?
Even assuming that Watkins is healthy and plays, I'm still taking Cooks. I think Dallas might, just run the ball all over the Rams and kind of limit what the Los Angeles offense can do. So I think Cooks I think he broke out last week, and I think he will probably, continue trending that way moving forward.
Yeah, I'll go with Cooks too. I think Watkins will be a little, hopefully he plays, but he is injury prone. It's a little small thing. Dallas, the secondary is terrible. Orlando Scandrick is their best cornerback, and he can't cover anyone anymore. I'll take Brandon Cooks versus Carolina. I think they're gonna crush Carolina early in this game. All right, 2 bad matchups. Week 4: Pierre Garçon at Arizona or Golden Tate at Minnesota.
I'm gonna go with Golden Tate. I think this guy is probably pissed off because they, overruled his touchdown to win their game. That would have won their game against Atlanta. So I think he's going to bounce back with a really nice week next week against the Vikings.
Yeah, I think. So talk about these defenses a little bit. At Arizona, they have Patrick Peterson, a shutdown cornerback, who will probably be on Garcon the whole game because Garcon's the best weapon they have. San Francisco, that is. Golden Tate is usually in the slot this season, so the Minnesota cornerback Xavier Rhodes will probably be on one of the outside wide receivers. So I'll take Golden Tate as well, eating up the middle of the field there.
All right, I got the Eli Manning edition of Would You Rather. Would you rather live in the shadow of Peyton Manning your whole life or permanently look like you left the oven on at home?
Oh my God, is this the Eli Manning edition?
Mm-hmm.
This is gold.
I'm going to go with the first one. I'd rather live in the shadow of Peyton Manning. That's nothing to scoff at. This guy, Peyton Manning, is an absolute legend. And if that's the alternative to, looking like, Eli looks when he's on the football field, that's fine with me.
Are you ready for that emotional pain?
Maybe not.
So
I got to say, you handled that handily.
Oh, that's good. You brought it back on. Brought it back there. All right. So would you rather live in the shadow of Peyton Manning, or what's the other one?
Would you rather live in the shadow of Peyton Manning your entire life, or permanently look like you left the oven on at home?
It's a concerned look, so I don't think that's a bad look. I'll take the look. I don't want to live in someone's shadow, even if it's Peyton Manning. That means you're living in his shadow, playing football, in commercials, every single aspect. He's better than you at everything, and I don't like that. I want to be better than him at one thing. So I'll take the oven on look.
I'm emotionally distraught as it is, so I'm going to go with the oven look because I think I can handle looking dumb. I already do all the time. So
yeah, you do it on purpose. This would be by accident, or I guess whatever. I don't know. All right, tight ends. These are two good
handling,
matchups.
Scott.
I handled that handedly. Handedly handled it. Late on a Monday night. On to the tight ends. All right, these are good matchups. Jimmy Graham versus Indianapolis. This is like a theme. We have a lot. I just realized we have a lot of Indianapolis. Whatever. Jimmy Graham versus Indianapolis or Delaney Walker at Houston. Two good matchups. Fairly good matchups.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting that we keep picking on Indy, but for this one, I'm going to go with Delaney Walker. This guy's just a model of consistency. Actually had a usable week last week against a really good defense. So give me Delaney Walker at Houston. Houston just got shredded by Rob Gronkowski, so I'll take Walker.
Yeah, I was just going to say Gronk ate them up. I'll take Delaney Walker at Houston. I think this will be a shootout, honestly. I think Houston will be a little pissed that they lost that game, and they always play each other tight against Tennessee, so I'll take Delaney Walker for a bounce-back week. He's been a little quiet this year. Two bad matchups. On the other side of the ball, Ryan Griffin, the tight end on the Houston Texans, pretty much taken over the starting job. Had 5 catches this week. Ryan Griffin versus Tennessee or Mercedes Lewis at New York Jets.
Ooh, I don't love either of these players. I will probably, I would definitely go with Griffin just based on the fact that Deshaun Watson looked to him in the red zone and looked pretty good. And clearly Griffin recovered from his, possible concussion quicker than the other tight ends in Houston. So he's the guy, if I had to pick between these two, he's the guy I'd go with.
Yeah, I'll take him too. Mercedes Lewis, the only year he was relevant was like 7 years ago, literally, like 2010. So I will take Ryan Griffin. versus Tennessee.
Okay. Would you rather be a Jets fan?
No.
That's the first part. Or be,
No.
or be forced to pee your pants once a week for the rest of your life.
Be forced to pee your pants. So
You're forced to pee your pants.
again, I don't know if this is. I just have another question. How does one get forced to pee one's pants?
Somebody
chime
might
in
show
here
up and
first.
start squeezing you.
Oh,
I don't know.
What the fuck?
So we're dealing
write
with
this
pretty
joke.
much equivalent levels of embarrassment here. So let's just cross that off. I think the one thing that is better about being a Jets fan than being forced to pee your pants once a week for the rest of your life is the element of surprise is not there. You just know it's coming. You know the Jets are going to embarrass you week in and week out, but not knowing when someone's going to force you to pee your pants, I think that's the kicker for me. I think I'd still rather be a Jets fan than take the alternative.
Yeah, it could be like Wednesday at noon, and you're at work and eating lunch, and someone just comes up to you and is like, "Oh, it's time." That would suck. It could be on a date. It could be watching Sunday football. It could be watching the Jets on Sunday. So I'll take the Jets fan because there's always a little hope. And regardless, we're never happy. If we win, we always say, well, we should be tanking. We should have lost. And then if we lose, we bitch and moan too. So it's kind of fun doing that, actually.
It's a closer call than you think.
Yeah, it's pretty close. Rob, what do you?
Well, peeing my pants once a week would give me an excuse to leave whatever I'm doing. So I'm going to go with pee pants.
All right.
Okay.
We'll go with that.
It might get me out of an awkward situation, or it might put me into an awkward situation.
Could put you in one, yeah. All right, that does it for Would You Rather. Let us know your thoughts. Couple quick things for defenses and kickers for Week 4 preview. Streaming defenses this week, so this is basically they're playing offenses that are on a cold streak or aren't doing well.
Defenses that are on Netflix, they're available.
Oh, yeah. Nice. Wow, that was good. Oh, anyway, defenses that are available are the Steelers versus the Ravens. The Ravens just scored 7 points against the Jacksonville Jaguars, so I would pick up the Steelers. Feel pretty good about that. Patriots defense has been terrible all year, but they're playing Carolina, who just threw 3 picks to New Orleans this week. So Patriots a good streaming option, and then the Jaguars at New York Jets, another good streaming option. I don't believe in the Jets. I don't know how they beat the Dolphins. Couple of kickers to pick up. Ryan Suckup or Sukup, Tennessee kicker. The stat goes something like this. He's made it's somewhere like 44 or 45 straight field goals from 40 yards or shorter. So this guy's a freak, and he's had 16, 15 points every week. Pick him up. He's not owned in like any leagues. Greg Zuerlein, another kicker on the Rams. Pick him up. Don't, however, pick up Steven Hauschka on Buffalo. Don't get sucked into it. He had 19 points, and I don't know if he changed his name. So his name spelling, I want to cover this guy because I do not like him. He used to be Steven, and now all of a sudden on ESPN it's Stephen.
Oh no!
I don't know what's going on there. I don't really care because
that guy's high maintenance.
He cost me a championship. I lost by 2 points on the game. He missed 3 field goals. He was 30 of 33 all year up until this game, and then he missed 3 field goals, and I lost by 2 points to Mormon. And I still am not over it. That was 3 years ago. So don't pick up Steven Hauschka.
And you definitely don't want to pick him up after Scott gets through with him in his fight.
I forgot about that. Yeah.
You know what kind of guy changes the V to a PH in his name? The kind of guy that has a portable espresso maker and pulls over on the side of the highway to have a cup of espresso because he just needs to have it right then. That guy's high maintenance.
I thought you were going to say
there's no need to change
pants.
it from a V to a PH. What does he think he is, Steph Curry?
I thought you were going to say it's a guy that would like pee his pants once a week.
No.
That's what I
No,
thought you were
Scott.
going
I like that better, I think. I think I like that one better.
No.
Thank you. Well, that does it for Week 4 preview.
Thanks for sucking the air out of my joke.
All right, that does it for our week.
I'll take over from
week
here.
3
Scott can't talk.
recap / week
That wraps
4.
it up for week 3. That's payback for ruining my joke before.
He's so mad about that.
Shut up,
It's
Scott.
just-
Shut up.
You should have gone into the
That wraps
espresso
it
joke
up for
a little bit. All right.
week 3.
Blah, 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 blah.
That whacks it up for 3 wee. And I need an espresso, so I'm going to pull over to the side of the highway. All right, make sure you guys subscribe on iTunes, on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, YouTube, iHeartRadio. You can ask Alexa to play our
Give us
podcast
reviews.
if you want. Make sure you leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or iTunes because it's going to make us look a lot better. And make sure you share the podcast with your friends. Now that you've shared the podcast with a friend, now tell your friend to share the podcast with their friend. And then their friends should share it with their friends. And so you should have a friend of a friend of a friend sharing the podcast with a friend of a friend of a friend, and then have them share that with their league. And that should get us... my God. The downloads are coming in, people. It's growing. So what you're doing is working, and we appreciate it. So keep listening. Keep telling people. Follow us on Twitter, @UnqualifiedFF. We love you guys. We'll see you next week.
See you later.
Well, see you later.
See you later.